Hello everybody, this is FDV Vladireg here to bring you, well, I can't say another episode even though I was about to, here to bring you a new series called Map Analysis, or rather, I don't know if it's called Map Analysis, no, don't have a name for it quite yet, but that is what it's about, analyzing maps, seeing how we can take advantage of them, what we gotta look out for, all that good stuff. We're actually going to start off with this map here, which is Frost LE, one of the new maps in the ladder. I have had the, is there a crisp? Yep, there it is. I have had the honor of casting games from this map before. Let's just turn the sound down a bit. Nothing should be over my sexy smexy voice, and I did not just say that, you didn't hear it, so anyway, whatever. Let's move forward with it. I'm going to be looking at this map from the Terran, the Zerg, and the Protoss perspective. Well, obviously, but I'm going to be doing it in that order. Not that I'll be changing races, I sort of just threw this out here and then, you know, took the red pill, so to speak, to disable the fog of war. And yeah, so here I am. Anyways, looking at this from the Terran perspective, thinking specifically about TBT right now, you have to always, the first thing I always look at is with a 4 spawn location map. Now, I'm 90% sure that this map will force spawns by side. Can't honestly say for certain if that is 100% true. No, it is not. Never mind. Don't listen to me. You can spawn anywhere on this map, I believe, according to some of the notes I have beside me, although I must admit this was from the notes I have are actually from a tournament version of this map, so the spawn locations may vary. It's not horribly important currently to what I'm about to say. Now, one of the things to note is you actually have a much smaller area for Reapers than you might think. Right here, right there, and yeah, that's pretty much your Reaper limit. Of course, for your even for your natural, there's not, you know, a whole lot of places for Reapers. That means that Reaper openings on this map are going to be much trickier to pull off. Moreover, because of the way this base here is placed, and because of the way this base is placed, you can really expect to see a lot of siege tank plays be very strong, because it's easy to put them in positions like here or here and cover a lot of area without having too much trouble. On the other hand, all these bases, despite what it looks like a sort of a relatively macro map, all these bases seem relatively safe, except that they all have back doors. This area here, I actually got to see a ZVZ where roaches just kept coming back and forth through, it was actually this area over here. Not going back and forth through it, but every area has that sort of back door to it. So you really have to watch out about, you know, so many different places. Obviously, you can take the watchtowers here and here, and that'll help you quite a bit at doing it. But either way, you have to watch out for this point, or rather, you know, this area here and this area if you want to really protect your bases. Now, that being said, if you can pull that off, honestly, these are relatively easy to secure so long as your forces are in position at the right time. So, not too much of a trouble. Obviously, there is a lot of good drop potential on this map because of all this airspace behind this huge area here where drops can happen. Basically, this is a very droppable map, and so Terrans can look to do that and also have to watch out for it in TVT. Moving on to TVZ, TVP. Yeah, basically, sure the same thing. You have to watch out a little because this is a tad wider than some ramps or some areas are to the natural, so it can be a little harder to wall off versus Zerg rushes, although this is extremely easy to wall off if you're going for an early expand, which you probably should be on a 4-player map. No real reason not to. Be foolish to 6-pool on a map that's basically so hard. There's not even a good chance you'll know where your opponent is by the time you have to send your lings out. So yeah, no reason really not to, but one thing to remember is you do have a fairly large area to cover when talking about all the bases, and even if you do get troops into position and have everything scouted out, you know, for the attack. When we're dealing with Protoss, you have to remember to look for all those proxy pylons. Here might be a very good location. Anywhere in this area, almost, actually, like right here is brilliant for it. Yeah, you have to be watching out for those flanking attacks, things like that. Of course, you don't really need me to tell you to look for proxy pylons, but seriously, do it. I mean, I've just came from watching a game where somebody missed a proxy pylon and it just ruined them, and they would have been fine if they had just noticed the pylon in their base. So, always remember to do that. Either way, moving on, also talking about TVP, you have to remember that while Reapers can't go up this, Stalkers certainly can. Stalkers have a real strong advantage on this map because they can strike from almost any location in this area. Basically, your base really isn't all that safe. It's hard for them to get directly in the mineral lines, though, which does give you a little bit of advantage. Basically, Blink Stalkers, easy to get into the main base, hard to do any real damage once they're there. Talking from the Zerg perspective now, your third base is initially going to be very, very hard to defend. It'll be just a ton of avenues to attack it. If you're going to take a third base, I sort of recommend going for more of a defensive play. Maybe take your third base a little later, because look at this, there's so much area to cover. Oh wow, my mouse froze. That's perfect. You know, there's a lot of area, and while that might give you the advantage in some cases with Zerglings, ZVZ is going to be hell because of it. You have to deal with way too much area to really feasibly wall off, except for here, and even then you can't just, you know, it's going to take you maybe 2 or 3 buildings to wall off what normally would take you 2 on some other maps. From the Zerg perspective, though, looking at Muta Harass, the same thing that I was talking about with drops applies to Mutalisks. It can make it very easy with all of this space back here to fly in and harass. Also, the fact that this base here is open to basically thin air means that once games do progress to the late game and the fourth, by the way, almost forgot to mention for Terran and for Zerg and for everyone basically, that this area here makes the third base, makes choosing this as a third base relatively dangerous because, well, you have the height advantage and it's a backdoor. But on the other hand, versus an aerial opponent, this could be a real danger. Mutalisks really can exploit this. Also, because of the size of the areas you have to defend, it's a lot easier to get changelings in, a lot easier to pull off scouting, and, you know, Nidus Worm plays can be fairly good if you do it properly. Depends basically on their base awareness, as I like to call it. Sort of like map awareness, but limited to your base, obviously. Now, talking about what we really could see here, even though I'm talking a lot about how Mutalisks will be good, I actually want to say that Roaches, at least if the opponents spawn close by, probably are a much more likely choice, just because this is not exactly the easiest to defend map. There's a lot of wide open space, which can make Roaches have basically they have a better advantage if they have a lot more space to work with. The Zerg units, Lings through Roaches, or Ling, Baneling, Roaches, all do a lot better if they don't have to be forced into a little tiny gap. So Roaches actually will be able to engage very well, get some really nice arcs here, overwhelming Protoss, Terrans, even Zerg armies. It's really a nice place to use Roaches, especially with all these flanking opportunities that they have. Talking from the Protoss perspective, your PVT, not going to be really much of an issue. Looks like a very good map for Blink Stalker. Remember, you can always just put a proxy pylon down, which allows you basically to sort of ignore the fact that this is a rather larger map and push on anyway. I do like Blink Stalker here because of the cliffs, although what I said earlier about not being able to get to the mineral fields very easily is true, and once you get in, it can be hard to escape because their armies are going to be coming from this area-ish, and they're going to come up this ramp. And if you're here or here, basically you're sort of cutting off your own defense. Though, honestly, if I were the player, I would try to put my units in a way that they'll want to come around the command center and hit you over here. That way that you can move your units this way and try and get down onto their natural and exploit that. Remember, they're going to be right on your butt though, and you got to get out of there fast. There isn't really a place you can blink out of, or out to. You actually will have to run out this way with your stalkers. So you have to be careful not to get trapped here doing that. Colossus play, not as strong, or, you know, basically the Colossus Deathball play, not quite as strong on this map as it could be because of all this wide open space. Once you get the Death Ball, of course, you know, it helps a lot, but Terran and Zerg armies are going to have a lot of room to maneuver, which is not usually something you like. So a good amount of force fields really can change the tide of this battle, of these battles on this map, because you can take away, I mean, look at all this space. It's almost reminiscent of Derelict Watcher. It's just basically open space with, you know, that tower there. And of course, those beacons that do provide a little bit of line of sight blockage. Talking about your PVZ on this map, yeah, basically you're going to have a hard time taking your third base. You really need to sort of prepare for it, and in fact this for a third base is just almost undefendable. At least at first, because this is just such a wide area. Or, I mean, I suppose you really should wall off here. Consider taking this as your wall off or your defensive point as opposed to here. Even though it's harder to get to this area faster, it's a lot more defensible, a lot cheaper to hold than that. Also, this area here is sort of a lot wide, but if you defend in sections here and here, you can make decent wall-offs and divide Zerg forces, basically control the battle as you'd like. Now here, basically any sort of advantage you will gain will be through your own making. I will point out that you can have Colossus here, and that'll allow you to strike sort of at the back of their arc without having to worry much about it. And also, by the way, I'm realizing that my talk about this map for Protoss is a lot more in-depth than for Zerg or Terran. I'm sort of new to this map, honestly. I've never played Terran or Zerg on it, so yeah, that sort of explains that. Also the fact that I'm a Protoss player, but whatever. And, well, honestly, I just give a lot more thought to Protoss on this map. I'll be much more in-depth next time. As my mouse freezes again, we're just going to do this like it's some screen dubstep. There we go. Maybe not dubstep, I forget what I'm thinking. Yeah, no, that'd be it. Anyway, so that's most of the map analysis that I wanted to do. Obviously, there's stuff left out, stuff I don't get, maybe even things I don't understand in the slightest, but that'll be left up for time and players to tell. Only real way to get a feel for a map is by playing it yourself, but who knows, I hope I've helped. Should have given you a little bit of the dangers, a little bit of the things you could be seeing and what could be problematic on this map. To sum it up, for Terrans, you really want to watch out for hidden pylons, or basically trying to deal with the Zerg in these wide open spaces in the early game. Got to be very careful about that. Easy to get your Hellions surrounded, easy to get your Marines surrounded, and lose everything to just a little bit of Lings, basically, and that never feels good. Also, drops are powerful for you, but also powerful against you because of this wide open area that makes air just so much more powerful. Zerg and ZVZ going to have a little bit more trouble taking your third base because of that wide open area, even if you can get to it because of how hard this spot can be to defend. Mutalisks will be strong, but hey, it can be a strange game if enough roaches come through, because they will not be easy to put down with such an open space. ZVP is going to be, basically you sort of have to figure that this is not easy to forge fast expand on. You could actually go for early Lings and maybe get something out of it. Sort of depends on what you read and how easily you scout your opponent, but you should watch for Forge Nexus first, and you might want to consider going Hatch first yourself on a 4-player map. Anyways, going on to the Protoss, the Blink Stalker can be powerful here, but it's a lot harder to hit their minerals, and even if you can go to here and then go to here, you know, that hit the main, then bounce to the natural, that basically every Protoss loves to do. When you do that, you have to worry about getting yourself trapped in a situation you cannot escape from and losing your entire army, so you gotta be careful with it. On the defensive, this positioning basically allows you to really exploit the mobility of Colossus, hit arcs, and do a lot of damage. But at the same time, in small to medium numbers, you have to worry about being overwhelmed in all that open space. And yeah, there we go. I think that just about covers all of it. This sort of went a lot long, or like twice as long as I thought it would. Either way, this is the very first episode of me analyzing maps. I don't know, have a name for it. We're just gonna call it map analysis, cause well, that's what it is. Where did they get these spikes, by the way? I'll have to look that up in the editor. Either way, this has been FDV Vladireg.